Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board for Tuesday, March 3rd, 2015. Call to order, and please all join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, retire roll call, please.
Trustee Pompo is absent and excused. Trustee Durant.
Here.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Truscott.
Here.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Retire is here, and Supervisor Limata.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard and Superintendent Kirk Page. Committee members present are John Marks from Zoning Boards of Appeal, Dave Wiegand from Planning, Roads, and the Recreation Committee, and Mike Springer, Roads and Recreation.
Thank you. Next item on your agenda is approval of the consent agenda. As you know, the items on the consent agenda do not typically require immediate board action. This evening is approval of the prior meeting minutes of February 17th. Received committee reports of Planning Commission minutes from January 14th, Fire Department officers meeting draft minutes of February 2nd, and the Fire Department draft minutes of February 9th. Roads Committee minutes of February 3rd and March 3rd agenda. The Recreation Committee minutes of February 3rd, 2015. We also have correspondence this evening from North Country Disposal, information regarding the opening of their recycle and transfer station out on 492. It also includes a memo from Superintendent Kirk Page regarding the monthly rubbish drop-off, which for the first Wednesday, folks, effective April 1st, we will begin having the drop-off out at North Country Disposal's transfer station. Also, the Accident Fund Workers' Compensation audit results, as well as the North Star Academy funding request letter that we had discussed from Manager Gerard. Bills payable in the amount this evening of $166,112.49. And we also have January's financial statements as well as the treasurer's report. Are there any items in this consent agenda that any member of this board wishes to remove for further discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. The next item on your agenda is the approval of the remainder of the agenda. Are there any items that any board member wishes to make an adjustment to on the agenda as presented? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I guess we were superseded.
Is there support?
Lynn already did.
Okay.
Okay. Motion and support to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. That's going to bring us up to public comment. Those members of the public wishing to address this board may do so at this time. Please approach the podium, first and last name and address before you begin. Any takers?
Dave Wiggin, I'd like to reserve some time for item number 8A, representing the Road Committee, and then item number 9C for the Recreation Committee. And then an update on Lions Field as long as I'm up here. They started the underground plumbing rough-in today. They're thinking they will have resource management's approval before the end of the week, and they're planning on starting concrete on Monday.
Thank you, Dave.
Yep.
Sherry Johnson, 2272 Cherry Street. I would like to reserve time on number 8A. Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. Anyone else wish to address the board under public comment? Going once, going twice? It's gone. We'll close public comment, move to board member comment. Those members of the board wishing to make comment may do so at this time. Lynn, start with you.
Planning meeting last week, if I can find my agenda. You were aware that we had the $575, thereabout $1,000 grant for safe routes to schools that RPF is going to be going out in the next week or so for spring of 2016. And we had public hearing on the Michigan Michigan Department of, oh yeah, that one is Natural Resources. The passport grant that I'm sure will be discussed later. And also the public hearing on the trust fund grant. And that will come to this board as well. We also had, we expect to have a site plan review by March 25th for Dairy Queen in front of the Target parking lot. We talked about an AT&T tower, a new one, or being moved, probably bigger. And we are trying to put together, and I haven't heard lately if it's going to happen, a meeting with some of the lighting professionals in town, maybe March 11th or so, toward our lighting ordinance. So that should be coming back to this board again. And we had updates then on Lions Field as well. That's it.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Diana?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Katie?
April 3rd, which is a Friday, will be your last day to register for the May election, which is, put that in here in a second. It'll be May 5th, so you have to be registered 30 days in advance. So Friday, April 3rd at business close is your last day to register for that election.
Thanks. Pete?
I just want the residents to pay attention to the roads that we have today. With the snowpack roads, it's kind of smooth. It'd be kind of nice to have those in 3 years in the summertime, ride down some of these same roads that are kind of smooth, so
That it?
that's it.
Thanks, Pete. The only thing I'd like to bring up at this time is on March 14th, we've been talking about it the last couple of meetings, but the 3-on-3 hockey tournament out at the new ice rink at Lions Field. Just want to remind everybody that it is open. They are registering teams now. You can pick up the information from Synergy Fitness and do a registration there. It's set to kick off at 9 a.m. on March 14th. I do believe they've found a couple of groups that are willing to run some concessions, so there should be at least some hot cocoa and whatever there. But it's a 3-on-3 tournament, no goalies. Be the first time we did anything out like that on the new rink. We'll split the rink. There'll actually be 2 games going on at once. The bracket's been set up. A big thank you to Todd Nordyke from Great Lakes Radio for the tremendous help and support that he has given this event as the chair of the events committee. Wouldn't have happened without him. Again, Brian Klaus from Synergy Fitness, thanks for joining the events committee, and this was kind of one of his ideas that he spearheaded, so it's kind of coming together, and we're looking forward to it. So if you've got a team out there, all ages are welcome. We will take and try to group you by age groups in the early bracket. No guarantees as you move up, though. With that, we'll close.
Who was that other guy?
Brian Klaus.
Klaus, okay.
We will close board member comment and move into unfinished business, 8A, the Township Roads Rehabilitation Project Status Report. Dave and Sherry, you both reserved time to talk about this. Sherry, if you want to go first, I mean, you're welcome to, or you can reserve it till after we're done.
I would like to reserve until after the ones that are going to talk about the road.
Sure. You did have included in your packet that was inadvertently put down behind the manager's report, but you do have a UP Engineers and Architects dated February 26, 2015 transmittal to the Marquette Township Board that kind of talks about some of the options that are available based on the current numbers that we're looking at in regards to the road rehabilitation plan as approved by the voters. And Manager Gerard, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I believe you'll have Dave Wiegand coming up as well.
Thank you, Supervisor Limita. As Supervisor Limita mentioned, I do have a memorandum, a transmittal memorandum in your packets. I'm not going to read through the memorandum. It's fairly lengthy. It's a little over a page. However, for the viewers in the audience, it is in the packet, which is on our website, www.marquettetownship.org. And it will also, this discussion will also be on YouTube right after this meeting. Basically, what my transmittal memo dealt with, some of the discussions we've been having over the last several board meetings following the Court of Appeals decision and then the decision of the Michigan Supreme Court not to review the big box tax tribunal case. That basically changed the framework, basically, of our financing for the project as we had proposed it long before. In July of 2014, the Road Committee came before you with their recommended road improvement plan, which the board adopted. We began working on that plan, and now we find ourselves with the impact, the potential impact of that big box decision spreading to other parts of the township and other parts of our economy here in the township and the business community, putting us about, over that 15 years now, about $2.5 million short of completing the project as it was proposed. Most of the folks who will be listening to this or seeing this on YouTube or reading about it in the paper will also be reading that the library is already being impacted to the point where they've had to close on Sunday. In today's Mining Journal, there's an article from the library director indicating that they may have to take another day and close, depending on what happens with the We Energies tax tribunal case. That doesn't include the impact of Marquette Township. As it sits right now, the library will lose another $37,800 in our contribution to them coming up as well. So it is a substantial impact. The direct impact to our operations, township operations general fund, is $221,900. The roads that the funding that we put towards roads is going to be reduced by $35,500. The library, as I already mentioned, will lose $37,000, and the Iron Ore Heritage Trail is going to lose $8,300, and our own fire department will lose $104,400 in operating funds as well. That's the impact on just this township of that big box decision. So, with regard to the funds that will be available over the 15 years that we had designed this project to be repaid, we're short $2.5 million. In addition to the big box, we also had higher bond rates, and the compounding of the bonding contributed to that as well. As a result, we told the board 2 meetings ago that we would look and research options that the board has available to them. We worked with the road committee, with our planner and zoning administrator, myself, Kirk Page from Public Works, Jim Owaneke from the Road Commission, and representatives from UPEA who are here tonight, Brian Savaline and Mark Davital and Matt Trito, to try and see what options we had. We also consulted with our bond counsel, Tom Collis, and with our bond advisor, Paul Stouter, who are working with us in the financing of this package. And it's going to be difficult. We can complete the project, and there are several different options to do that. However, it cannot be completed in the format and in the complexity that we put to the voters. So the issues facing the board at this point are several, and one is, do we continue to go forward with the project with the funding that's available, recognizing that that will likely mean we will not be fully constructing roads, we'll be doing surface reconstruction and surface improvements, but not full reconstructions? Do we include in the road project utilities that could offset some of the costs and be able to pick up some of the cost of the roads if we were to extend or replace water lines and sewer lines, let's say? Do we go back to the voters and explain to the voters what had happened and ask them if they're willing to go forward with the project as it would have to be modified, which would mean probably August? We would go to the voters. We would lose 2015 as a construction season. So we would be looking at 16, 17, 18 at that point instead of 15, 16, 17. Or do we change the order of repairs and break it up into smaller projects? So there are a number of different options that the board could look at with this project. I think it is critical that we go forward in some manner with improving the roads. We are looking at other sources of revenue to go along with this, although there is nothing that's been committed as yet. As I mentioned, we do have the UPEA reps here with us tonight, and they do have a presentation of some of the options that we've looked at, some of the options that they see as potentials. And at that, I will turn that over to Brian Savalainen, and unless Dave wants to make some comments first. I don't know. Okay.
All right, I'm Brian Savalainen, a senior civil engineer at UP Engineering. I'm also our East Marine office manager, which is our Marquette County office. Little background on myself. I'm actually a township resident too, so I've been kind of watching what's going on. I think I've been a resident probably since like 2002. I've been an engineer in the area for 26 years, I think now. Actually, Randy and I go back a little bit on the road millages. He got a project several years ago, and I guess I'm showing my age a little bit that I don't recall exactly how long ago it was, but at that time, myself with another firm did some of the engineering services and helped that project move forward, and it went pretty smooth, and I've got some history in terms of the way that worked out. Actually, from an engineering standpoint and from a community standpoint, I think you guys have really taken a step forward, and in fact, the state now is trying to come up with these types of ideas, and Randy has been really foregoing and trying to get these improvements done. Every community struggles with general fund and road projects. It just, people have water and sewer money, but the roads are always the hardest thing to replace. And a lot of the problem behind that is the fact that water and sewer projects can last you 60, 80 years. Road projects typically last you 40 to 50 years in terms of a reconstruct, but you also have stages of maintenance that needs to be done during those years. So, not to keep going on that stands, the reason we got involved here a little bit, Mark Davatilla's with us too. He's our primary road engineer out of our office right now. He's actually been working with Marquette County on the Ontario Street project that they're moving forward with right now. So we work with the county quite a bit. We do a lot of their engineering work as well. So we had gotten information from them up front, and we kind of knew what was going on, and we were trying to help them and maybe come up with a plan on a way we can get this accomplished. So that's why we contacted Randy. The first thing we did, and I want to commend the road committee in terms of establishing those budgets with the assistance of the road commission, we went through and we did more of a blind study in terms of what those budgets really were. Are they real numbers? And we concur. The millage that was established in the budget that went out was well thought up and well put together. And it was going to address your roads. It was done under proper manner. You guys had done what's called the PASER study. So there was a lot of thought and effort put into it. So your numbers are solid. You know, your staff and everybody here did it. It really comes down to the store and the cost. You had an $8 million project budget total, which was solid, and now you're really left with $5 million. So what we started doing after we analyzed those numbers, I also have Matt Trado with us. Matt is a rural development water and sewer engineer that does a lot of our huge, large municipal projects when we're looking at replacing an entire water system or sanitary system. So we started putting our heads together a little bit, and as we dug into it, we were actually doing some work with Kirk Page too. On the Ontario Street, we found there's some water that needed replacement on there, so Matt got involved, and we started putting two and two together here, and we discovered that some of these roads that are in the plan actually do have 6-inch water mains, which typically require to be 8-inch now, need improvements. They're getting near 50 years old, which gets closer to their lifestyle cycle. You don't want to go much past 60 usually in terms of your water system, and you need to make those improvements. So when we started looking at that, we thought maybe there's a couple of different ways to look at this and still accomplish your road project. So we've done some preliminary investigation. We've looked through some of your numbers in terms of, you know, maybe we tried to do a rural development program along with the road program and do two different funding sources to move forward with the project. And we think we found some possibilities in there to do that. And I'm gonna let Matt take over here in a little bit, as soon as I exhaust what I need to say, and he'll explain that a little more. I do want to also tell you that I had conversations with Scott Urbish yesterday from the county. They were still fully anticipating $7 to $10 million road bond. They're still 100% behind you. They are waiting for the township to get in front of them and let them know what they want to do. I've talked to them. I've let them know that the project realistically in terms of road millage, that no matter how we look at them, we're looking at a $5 million bond is what we can use to do the roads, and he's still very supportive of that. I let him know that you know, we're going to bring some ideas to your board and some ways to help that funding to move some things forward, and they're just waiting to find out what the plan is, and as soon as we need them to pull that bond, they're ready to go. So, you know, that being said, we are getting in a short time frame here, and this project really needs to start moving, or you are going to lose 2015. If you want to go to that, I'm just going to talk just a little bit more in terms of the roads and what your problem is going to be.
Can you manually take that mic with you when you go over there? So it'll pick you up. It won't pick you up on the tape otherwise. Thank you.
All right. Your road projects were broke up into several categories. There's some roads that all you need to do is you're going to do some seal coating, which is what you've seen, you know, right out front here last year. Basically, it's a real thin layer. It's a pretty cheap process. It doesn't actually require a lot of engineering. It's go out there and do it. The other types of roads that you looked at, there's some what are just called overlays. And what it is, it's clean the road up, repair some of your potholes, and just come over the top with a new layer of blacktop that's 1.5 to 2 inches thick.
That's similar to what we did on
Right.
Yeah, and that's overlays. So you've got a number of projects that are identified that way, and those are fine. The issues you have is when you come into roads that are severely deteriorated. Those are reconstruction roads. Now, what you see up here is not exactly the way every road needs to be treated. Some roads fail because the gravel is gone, or there wasn't enough put down, and just the pounding on it has beat through the blacktop, and it's not just a matter of putting a new course on top. You're going to get cracks through. Sometimes you have drainage problems. It's, you know, those of you that live in Trowbridge, you know that there's a lot of areas that are real wet, and what happens is over time, if you're not draining your roads properly, you're actually taking out some of this sand material from underneath, and it causes holes, especially along culverts in different areas. That underneath the road material, the sand, the gravel, and things like that need to be replaced, and that's where you get into reconstruction areas. So we looked at those different options and what's laid out there. If we treated every one of your roads just like an overlay or some sort of paving rehabilitation, we can accomplish that. One big thing you'll see in there, in the $7.5 to $8 million, there's actually a $1.3 million engineering budget. A lot of that is intended more for reconstruction. What the engineer got to do, we have to do a lot more field investigation and track what's going on. When it comes to resurfacing jobs, it's pretty simple. It's put a bid package out there. When they go out and pave, go with them, count the tonnage, make sure everybody did everything right. It's a very small percentage. You basically had used a 19% engineering rate, I think, for all of those projects. So there's some engineering costs right away that we think you're gonna be able to save on that if all we're doing is the surface treatment. I don't recommend doing that. I don't think the county recommends doing that unless you're willing to accept some shorter life cycles on the road. So what Matt's gonna get into here, if we looked at a rural development or a different type of water funding project, we could actually pay for half of the road work with the utility project as part of that loan. The other benefit of that is that those harder engineering dollars that you would do at that time, those would become part of that project too. And you're not eating your road millage with engineering dollars. You know, you're saving it for the surfaces. And then you'll know whether or not the funding works on those projects. The other thing about the utility projects is that if, and this is where the public needs to understand, we just do surface rehabilitation, we go through some costs and we determine that we can't fund all of these utility projects yet because it's gonna be too much of a burden on the taxpayers or not, then we need to go back and look. We've actually looked further down the road, and Matt will get in this again, that you gotta be prepared that, yeah, we'll pave this road, we'll put a thin layer, make it smooth, and it's gonna be smooth for 5, 6, 7 years. It's gonna start breaking up again, and that's because this hasn't been addressed. But if you have a long-term plan to address that, in 2025, you actually have a bond that's gonna go off the books that will help your utility and road funds at that time too. So we think there's actually a combination here of different projects that you can look at to move forward. And what we're proposing tonight is not that you make any sort of decision on what you need to do long-term. It's, let's make a decision to move forward and put out what we already know is this. Meanwhile, let's keep looking at how do we address this and when do we make that decision. Our intentions is to be here now on a meeting by meeting basis with you and your board, and we'll give you continued updates as we move forward. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of questions after we're done with this presentation, but I'm gonna let Matt take over right now and kind of explain some of the things we've talked about, and then we'll be available for questions.
Thanks, Brian. So, just to kind of touch on a couple of things that Brian talked about. One of the first things that we looked at when we started looking at this project is, okay, how can we get this project to continue to move forward while improving all of the roads that were promised to the voters? And this is the first step. The first step was roads that were originally demonstrated as being a full reconstruct, which is shown here on the right. 12 inches of sand, 8 inches of gravel, 3 inches of pavement. Instead of doing that everywhere, where it was originally shown in the millage, analyze each different road, try to determine what can and should be done as far as surface rehabilitations, if that's an overlay, crush and shape, mill and fill. You have different options, and each one of those options can improve your road depending on what your unknown subbase conditions are. So evaluating what your subbase is, trying to determine what the most cost-effective method would be, gets you down to your funded amount. Now that's before we even talk about any utility work. Without even talking about utility work, just going around and doing the most cost-effective surface rehabilitation to the roads gets you down to the funded amount and still improves all of the roads that we told the taxpayers that we would do. So that's something to keep in mind. It seems like something that, you know, everybody would get a road that was promised would get upgraded. So that's important. So when it comes to utility work, during UPEA's meeting with the township and Marquette County Road Commission, the condition of the existing utilities was discussed. Obviously, we don't want to be paying to upgrade roads and then coming back sometime in the near future and digging that road up again to do the utility work. During our conversations with the township, we developed a list of different areas that had water main, existing cast iron water main that was approaching the end of its design life. You know, it was 50 years old, undersized, and within the influence of this project. So what I show here is a typical cross-section of what a road and the associated water utility work would look like. On the right would be a full reconstruction where the water main was where the road work was within the influence of the water main trench. Anything on that right side of the road within the influence of the trench would be paid for by the water project. That's something that would have to be done regardless of the road millage or not. If you're digging up the road, you gotta pay to repave the road. The other side of the road would be paid for by the road millage. Now, one thing worth noting is that this is only shown as a reconstruction. The previous slide showed you a reconstruction and a surface rehabilitation. The reason that this is only full reconstruction is that once the utilities underneath the road are all upgraded, you can pay the money to do the full reconstruction because the road's gonna last longer than the utilities that are beneath the road. Because we don't wanna be paying to do a full reconstruction with a design life of 30+ years with proper maintenance, and then have to come back in 10 years and upgrade the water. But once the water's upgraded and the sewer's upgraded, you don't have to worry about having to come back and upgrade your utilities because they're already done. You can make the full investment into your roads because you're not planning on coming back anytime soon. So we identified a lot of different areas and essentially came up with a list of priorities and broke that out, and anything that was within the water or possible sewer work we put on the schedule for a 2016-2017 improvements. That map you were all provided, I believe, from Randy, is also right here is the projected 2015 work, which this map is, we actually took the map that was from the original millage. These are all of the road items that are not within the influence of any utilities that we believe need to be upgraded. The other map that you see, which is the 2016-2017 map, demonstrates locations where water main may need to be improved. So, for recommendations, number one, evaluate and revise the recommended road millage repairs. This allows UPEA, Marquette Township, and the Marquette County Road Commission to evaluate and modify the repairs taking place for the road millage. This allows the township to still repair all of the roads within the original scope of work and provide the best possible final product for its residents within the current budget constraints that we're dealing with. The second bullet point, full reconstruction within the water project area. As I just explained, we don't want to be paying to do full reconstructions in areas where we're going to have to come back and dig up the water main and replace the water main. But in areas where we do replace the water main, we can make that commitment. We can pay to do that from the cost savings from the water fund and the cost savings from the road millage. So it's essentially the best possible bang for the buck for the township and its residents to essentially do that full reconstruct with the water main project. For areas shown in that 2016 map that the township decides, you know, this water project's too big, we're only looking to take on this amount of money to pay for the water. In those areas, we would just do surface rehabilitations. As demonstrated in our surface rehabilitation slide, depending on how bad the subbase is, could have a life expectancy as low as 7 years. Now, that sounds like it's pretty low life expectancy, but as Brian touched on a little bit, we have a major debt payment right now to the Drinking Water Revolving Fund. It's approximately $275,000 a year. That is retired in 2025, approximately 7 years after the completion of this project. So if we only do surface rehabilitation work in areas where we don't replace the water main, in the next 10 years, that water main may be more critical to be replaced. We only paid to do improvements that are only supposed to last maybe 7 to 10 years anyway. And then when we come back then we do the water at the same time and do a reconstruction at the same time. So that's kind of the thought process behind everything that, you know, is associated with the water utilities. we're planning on doing a further analysis into what the capabilities of the water fund is, how much debt the water fund would be capable of taking on, what the board would be willing to consider for a size and scope of a water project. That is something that we can determine and talk about at a later date once we have more information on exactly what the financial health of the water fund is. So the other thing that you have in your packet is a proposal from UP Engineers and Architects. That proposal is to develop the plans, specifications, and bidding documents for the scheduled 2015 road millage improvements as shown by the UPEA 2015 map. UPEA will evaluate the structural integrity of the roads included in the entire road millage project. Recommendations for improvements will be made based on the information gathered in the field. UPEA will perform necessary survey work to complete necessary engineering design. UPEA will also provide part-time inspection during the 2015 construction season. Essentially what this allows us to do, it allows us to stay on schedule. It allows us to move forward, get our bidding, our plans, everything in place, evaluate the different roads, do on-site evaluations to determine what are the conditions of the subbase, so we can do the best possible surface rehabilitation from location to location. We move forward with something like this, we stay on schedule. I know the bonding process is sometimes time-consuming and cumbersome, and so we would like to try to stay on schedule so we can still do a significant amount of road work for the 2015 construction season. So now I'd like to open the floor up to any questions that anybody has, and be happy to answer them.
Just a couple of comments while we have folks going up to the podium. Basically what you're facing is we're trying to do the same project that you approved. The difference is that initially what we're talking about is instead of the longer term 25, 30 year road work, we're now talking with some of those being 7 to 10 year, and then looking downstream in that same time frame, that 7 to 10 years, as they mentioned, with the debt retirement out of the water being gone, having that money available then to go forward, doing a replacement project on the water and the road at the same time for the full reconstruction. The examples that have been used, the chip and seal basically is what we did on Commerce Drive, on chip and seal. Brookton Road is a good example of what they were talking about with what we call the wedge and overlay. It's the same thing basically, and we've been talking previously about crush and shape with some of the roads as well, and that's basically where you take the road up, crush it, put that material back down as underlayment, and then pave over it. The major difference is we told the residents that we'd be doing the project in 3 years and then out another 12 years basically beyond that for a total of 15 maintaining it. The issue that we're dealing with is our ability to do that maintenance on that 15-year basis. That stretches out quite a way in addition to the reduction in our revenue stream. The main issue here is we want to do what we told the residents we were going to do as best as we can with what our current circumstances. There is one wild card still pending. We have asked the Supreme Court to reconsider its rejection. We don't know that they will. It's a very, very slim chance that they would. It's like asking a judge to review your sentence, basically, and maybe change his mind or her mind. But at any event, that is pending. So as of right now, we have not had to recapture the taxes and redistribute. And as of today, we would not be doing that anyway. It now falls to the county. The county would be the recovery agency and distribution agency after March 3rd. So we dodged that bullet. It wouldn't be us doing it, which would have required a substantial amount of staff time. So that's what we're facing, basically. The other point that I wanted to make is UPEA is making a proposal here for a contract, which we were going to do anyway. I mean, this engineering and design was going to be contracted. We had budgeted about $600,000 for that. They're proposing to do it at a lower rate because we're looking at a different kind of a project now, not as much total reconstruction, which requires less engineering. So that shaves some of that cost off up front. But just a couple of points that I wanted to make before we move on. So
I'd like to make one more comment just in regard, in your packet, in your original packet, you received a proposal from us. You'll notice today there's an updated proposal, and I just want to explain that a little bit. And if you do go back and look at it, the original proposal that we proposed, actually, we looked at doing 2 projects this year. One doing the surfacing and and the overlay type of projects. The other projects that we identified to do a second package on, you actually do have, and this is where the problem is, you do have several roads that are identified as needing reconstruction that do not need utility improvements in the near future. And those are gonna be the tricky ones, and those are the ones that it's gonna be important that we develop maybe a better overlay plan or something to extend those lives as long as we can. So what we did to not complicate things, the proposal now that we have in front of you only addresses those initial projects where we know how to do it. And what it comes down to is I think we're looking at about $1.8 million right now for 2015. The original project, we were looking at 3.3 to 3.5 million in road work. And we think it's actually now, in terms of the way things are going, it's in your best interest to let's see what else we can find here. There's actually some things that, there's some real positive things we've found in the numbers for your water and sewer that we think there's capabilities of going out there. Our goal is to present to you in the near future a plan that would potentially use your water and sewer funds that would not cause any sort of rate increase. Because that's your goal. You know, being a township resident myself, you know, we all voted on this and said, yeah, great, fix our roads and make this happen. And I think the last thing that we want to do is go back, yeah, we're gonna fix them, but we're gonna increase your water $5, you know. We think there's a balance in there. And to be able to handle those road projects that don't have future utilities, I think we need to find some sort of road balance, because those roads need a little bit different type of address. We've found a few things in there that we think we can shave, you know, $300,000-$400,000, but we haven't found $2.5 million. We were able to shave a lot off the engineering right now, and I think you see that when you look at those numbers. So, but any other questions would be good. We'll step aside and let the public.
The comment is, keep digging for the 2 million there. Just as long as the residents know, understand this thing, that we will address all the roads that we set out to do. We will address all those roads. And also, isn't the sewer project, isn't that sort of the silver lining in this thing? Probably because we can save, instead of taking the road money to fix it, we're taking the sewer money to do it. And before, it might be a little bit of a better plan now than we had before, sort of a little bit of a silver lining in there.
Yeah, it actually is, and this may sound strange, you know, but this is fact. Your best project may be to, okay, we had a $7.5 million project planned to fix your roads, okay? And now we're down to only having $5 million. We actually believe that your best interests, and we're gonna wait until we can show all this, is you need to do about a $10 or $11 million project in these roads. But when we look at if we can do that in the next 3 years, you're gonna save between 1.5 and $3.3 million in terms of construction costs, engineering, you know, that are related to those. The engineering budget that you have established for just the roads, we believe could handle the roads and the utilities. You know, and you don't need to, you know, so we're looking at 3 to maybe 5 million in utility work. That's utility work, you know, and freeing up that top dollar on the engineering just to go to the road rehabilitation, and that's where your savings comes from. And in the future, we'll throw out more of those ideas. We know there's a balance in there somewhere, you know, and maybe it's not 10, maybe it's not 12, maybe it's 9, you know, but it's getting our township roads to where they need to be, wherever, in a 3-year period. and understanding that those that can't be fully done within that 3-year period, we've got a plan. 10 years from now, we're gonna readdress it and it's gonna come back, so. But your roads will, just like you said, we want our roads to feel at the end of 3 years like they feel right now, snowpack. You know, we wanna get rid of that. There's some widening, there's some walkability stuff, there's a lot of different other items here that the road committee has also looked into. And those are things that we think need to be addressed too. You know, and those are things that we'll look out through the duration of this. So what we put in front of you right now is enough to keep you going, for us and Randy to be able to go to the county board and say, hey, let's get this bond going so we can, you know, start these projects on time. I don't know if everyone noticed how cheap your gas has been recently and oil prices being down. That is a huge benefit right now in terms of paving your roads. It's an oil-based product. We haven't fully seen the effect on it, but you're gonna feel some. And those numbers that were generated right there, the more we can get in a larger quantity when numbers look good, the better off you're gonna be. So if you miss this season and prices start going back up, we're digging a deeper hole.
One of the biggest comments was that when people came in here, the comment is, now you're gonna fix the roads, and now 2-3 years, you're gonna dig them all up. And we said, no, we're not gonna do, because the sewer and water is gonna be done ahead of time. So we're still gonna do that, and plus we're gonna expand it a little bit and save some money and have somebody else pick up the cost of the other lane and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's, you know, and that's what'll get presented. You know, before we go into a street that needs utility, we're gonna give you the opportunity to discuss that. And this is not the only time that, you know, we'll be in front, you know, of the public. It's gonna be a step-by-step move now. We're just looking at a small increment right now. What we've proposed to you is enough to put together bid packages, to do more financial planning with your staff. Your staff has been really great in terms of working with us. The county road commission has been on board and they're behind us, and then all of the players are working really hard to try and make this happen. And that looks really, really positive. And we'll get it done. It's gonna take time, but you can't miss this boat.
Yeah. And realistically, you know, the board, in adopting the road facilities plan, had very superficial discussion about utilities and water control and runoff control. Basically, what we're talking about now is as Brian mentioned, a larger scope of a project cost-wise, but it brings in other revenue sources. And that's, you know, as for instance, rural development with low-interest loans that is in the long run cheaper than bonding. The bonds are at 3.5%. They compound annually for 15 years, and it turns out to be a huge cost. You have to have a bond counsel, you have to have a bond advisor that are drawing fees. If we can go rural development, you don't have that. It's basically it's like a mortgage. Basically, you have a fixed payment at a low interest rate, and that can go out 40 years. It can be amortized out to 40 years, as opposed to 15. So it keeps your payments low and regular. And it may draw some other funding in as well. And, you know, the point that's being made is just like any other time when we do any kind of water or sewer work where we have to disturb the road, we replace that section of road. So that's what they're talking about here, where we have undersized cast iron pipes that needs to be replaced anyway. If we do that as part of a road project, that reduces the cost on the road project and yet also puts in the utility. So that's what we're trying to work through this, to be able to do all these roads as we promised the residents, but with a little bonus that won't result in increased rates.
Just to play devil's advocate a little bit, you know, when we looked at the road rehabilitation plan before us and we're saying, you know, this is a good opportunity now for us to expand or to speed up the process of doing some of the utility improvements that we wanted to do, because we're going to save money and be able to do more utility improvements, get more infrastructure in the ground, because the roads are going to be done and we don't have that as part of the cost now. So, and Superintendent Page can certainly weigh in on this, but I look at it as kind of a double-edged sword then, that if you're looking at, yeah, we can cover some of this with utility projects moving forward, but at the same time, like I said, we were kind of looking at it saying, well, man, if we got this money, we can do these road projects now. Let's accelerate the timetable on putting in some utility improvements because we won't have to fix the roads, and that will actually save us money and give us more money towards utility improvements. So, I mean, I know there's a balance there and it's a trade-off, but I will be concerned. I want to make sure that when we look residents in the eye, that we're saying, hey, we can still do this project like we said, and yeah, we're going to be $2.5 million less than we had in a revenue stream, but that it really will not impact utility rates. I think that's one of the keys for the board, is that we understand that we can be sure that is not going to impact utility rates because of we're putting some of the road funding, which certainly a portion of it would have gone on repairing roads as we did utility jobs. We understand that. But how much of it? I mean, I don't want it to be sold as, hey, we're going to do, now some utilities are going to cover some of the costs of this road repair. If it sounds like that to a resident, that'd be a bad thing.
Yeah, and we don't, and that's why we're not proposing that those numbers even get discussed. I gave you some top end and some preliminary numbers. We've actually had preliminary conversations with rural development. We've talked to your bonding people. We've talked to the people involved in all of those funding sources, and we're not ready to commit yet. It's going to take almost a year to know if we can do that. But if you wait to move that forward for a year, that's going to be another year out. You're getting way out of your 3-year window. There's a couple of different opportunities we think we have, and that's what part of our initial proposal is here. There's going to be, if moving forward here, we're seeing that the opportunity is there to get an RD project. We need to submit a letter of application to them. We need to give them a scope of work. There's some triggers and some targets. In August is when we usually know how much money has come back in rural development projects and how much is there to do that. And if we can get some preliminary information to them, that really helps. But it could be anywhere from a 6-month to a 12-month process before you actually get those approvals. So we wouldn't even commit to those road projects or those dollars until we know that is. The biggest thing that they require is the financial analysis. We need to show RD what it's going to cost to make those improvements, and those would, if they required a rate increase, those have to be addressed as we're putting the application together, and that would have to go to the public. So our idea here is that if it's going to be a rate increase, that's not an option right now. Unless all of a sudden everyone stands up and charges and go, yeah, charge me more money to do our water, let's do this, and that's not going to happen. So we need to do our due diligence yet with those funding agencies to make sure that's there. And we've already started that process, and we've had a lot of conversations, and that's why items you've seen have changed just in 6, 8, 10 days, but it's not going to be long, and summer will be here, and then golf season is going to be over, and we're not going to be able to pave it. So,
I got one more question.
Well, I can assure you that tonight was not the first time we've discussed rates with these folks. They're probably tired of hearing it, but that's been our mantra right along, that whatever we do, it's not going to include increasing rates to the residents. And realistically, I think the way you need to look at this project is very similar to what we did on Warner Street and all the other projects we've done. We replaced the utilities when we did the road because we had the mobilization there, and we had it, and we're talking about the same thing here as a possible win-win to solve two issues. And what Brian is saying is essentially there's about a 1-year process, and Kirk has told you that before as well, for drinking water revolving funds and things such as that. It's a process of about a year before you get to the point of actually getting funding. That's why in this first year, 2015, if you look at your map, we're looking at basically just surface treatments, the roads that just require surface treatments, to give us that year to get through those processes with rural development and other funding sources to be able in 16 and 17 to do the subsurface as well.
Pete, you had another question?
Correct me if the way I'm thinking about this. What you're saying is that by replacing the 50-year-old water and sewer, now that particular project might been, the plan before would upgrade it to a 10, all right? But what we have to do, we'll probably have to settle for a 7, but by going back later on with the sewer done, we can take the money that we have to repair it and put it in there because we don't have to worry about the sewer. That's what I'm,
Not exactly in your case. You have, your water and sewer are a little different in your community. You have a lot of force main in the areas where we're doing a lot of your road improvements. That doesn't come into play. You actually do have some roads that you have new sewer planned, and that'll actually help as well. You actually have some self-funded projects in here that you don't need to go out and ask for help. You've already have them planned, and hopefully they work in the budget. We're gonna work through those numbers too and make that happen, but what we're just doing is, it is what you're saying, though. That water's close to needing its life up. So it's gonna go up, and what's gonna happen is basically all your 6 inches are gonna go up to 8 inches. You have a pretty strong network for your water system. There's some minor improvements that need to be done. But what you need to realize too, that if we just say, no, we'll just save those roads for when we do the water, that doesn't work either, because when you go to these funding agencies, and that's why we're showing you the half-width stuff, rural development will only pay for the impact of the road that it takes to put the water in. So if you got a road that's beat the heck, and you're gonna replace water main under one lane 10 years from now, rural development's gonna cover that half lane, but you're gonna have to pay for that other lane out of your general fund. You know, and right now, you have a road millage that'll handle that. You're way ahead of the game. Very few communities, I actually don't know of another community that kind of created a process for making this stuff all really work the way it should, you know, and you're really taking from us engineers, you're taking half of our livelihood away, but it's the right way to do it. We think it's a good plan.
Other questions?
I have a couple of questions. From what I understand, listening to this on rural development or grants like this here, we're talking about 1 year out before we'd really see anything?
Let me take that. There's a reason why we revised the schedule. The reason we revised the schedule is, as you can see here on the 2015 map, this is all road work that's not within the influence of any utilities that need to be done. This buys us essentially the time that we need to try to get whatever funding we decide to move forward with in place to do the 2016 and 2017 work. So that's kind of the beauty of how we were able to restructure the schedule, is now we're still doing a significant portion of the road repairs that needed to be done. And during that time, we're getting our water funding in place. And then come 2016 and 2017, everything's ready to go. Whatever we decide that an acceptable amount of debt or an acceptable scope of work for the water project, we do those roads at the same time. What is outside of those, we would do the surface rehabilitations with the plan of coming back in the next 7 to 10 years once the existing debt is retired and we have the funds to do it with the lowest possible impact on the users.
So if I'm looking at your map correctly, the red, yellow, and green are the services that will have no utilities
Correct.
addressed at this point in time.
Yep.
then, too, so. Okay, so that's what you're gonna be talking about, going out for bids on those and at this point.
Exactly, yep.
Okay, then jumping ahead to 16, 17, and looking at that, if we get grants, wherever they be, we still have to start planning for dollar amounts to meet whatever utilities are. So now it becomes to the Public Works to start laying out what their financial needs are going to be. What are the major projects coming up, and what are the projected costs are gonna be?
Yes.
Because if we don't get the grants, we're still gonna have to do the work and that. So those are the things that, gonna be some financial work that's gonna have to be done to keep ahead of the game.
And that's the next step that we're planning on taking, is continuing to assess the financial health of the water fund, coordinating with Kirk, determining what his highest level priorities are for what's inside of the road millage, figuring out how much debt we can take, what that means to rates, and essentially present that to you at hopefully one of the upcoming council meetings, so you guys know what needs to be done.
And Ernie, some of those projects in 16, 17 are already planned projects that Kirk had. So they're already in the works, so we would be looking at funding for the others.
'Cause I'm just looking at the balances here, where all that dollar is committed to, too. That's something else to look at, too, at this point in time, too. The other thing, on looking at the reconstruction on water mains, Ontario Street's going to be done this year, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to be doing water and sewer at that same time on Ontario, wherever it's necessary.
That's
So,
county project, yes.
county project, but Moran Street is crossing Ontario Street. So hopefully that everything will be set there, so on both sides of Moran, we just have to tie in when we actually do Moran itself in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's designed so that it's stubbed out of the road, so you don't have to re-rip up the road. You can attach and go. I mean, Mark just completed that design, I think, in the last couple of days, so.
Other than, what is it we're supposed to be moving forward on at this point in time? I
The
think
proposal
that's-
that they offered, but let's get everyone's questions answered first, and then we'll see. Lynn, you have questions?
Yeah, actually, I had two, and one of them was Ernie's about the funding. That's what I was thinking. But how does this fit in then to our 492 future plans? I guess I was kind of thinking that if it was that far out, that it would, by the time that the first debt was retired, maybe a second debt would be the funder for this next project on 492. If we
Phase two of the
decided
water
to,
project is
yeah,
what
if
you're
we
referring to.
decide to go that route, we haven't really, sat down and chewed on it yet, but, so then that kind of takes away funding if we're looking at that side of the water part of funding. So where does that fit?
Well, if you're talking about phase 2 of the water project, that would be a separate project like we did previously. It'd be a separately funded project under the SRF, the revolving loan fund.
But aren't they talking about using that in
No,
10 years
different.
for the
No, not,
It
that's,
frees up $275,000 payment or whatever it is that we make annually now on DWRF.
the current DWRF, not the
Right.
future.
Right, so when that retires, we would have 275 or whatever it is available to put toward what I thought was the 492 project. So now you're saying use some of it or all of it for this?
Well, but remember, the 492 project is going to be a joint project. We won't be fully funding that project. It'll be a three-way project between a developer, the property owner, and us.
Okay, so the scope will be smaller.
Scope would be smaller.
Probably do both,
Mhm.
right?
Other questions? Diana?
No, I was just curious about the, legal part of it. I mean, when we put it on the ballot, is that the language is gonna work with what they're,
Well, and that needs to be looked at. Now, the question was raised, what are we asking for tonight? I'm not really asking you to make a decision tonight. What I'm asking you to do is to take this information and maybe put it on the agenda for the meeting on the 17th to get all of your questions answered, because you're going to think of things after this meeting. Get all of your questions answered so you're comfortable. They have a chance to respond to any questions that you have. What we're really looking for you to do is to give us the authority to continue to work with UPEA to get to the point of you taking an action, which would probably be the 17th is what we'd be targeting.
I'm sure these guys would love us to make a motion to accept their proposal and give them the green light tonight to move forward if that's where the board was going. But yeah, it's all sitting before you, and this is the first time you've heard it, so I think it's reasonable to expect that you would want to hold it off till the next meeting to make a decision in regards to moving the proposal forward on the engineering services.
Well, Dennis, I thought the last motion that we made to start this process would cover that. Are you asking for another motion now or the next meeting because the scope has changed?
Well,
Do they not have authority to go ahead with the project?
Well, the scope has changed, and what we need to do is to make sure that we're living within the commitments that we made in the millage question. And I think that's what Diana's comment was. And, we're not there yet. I mean, we need to have somebody take a look. Roger's the first he's seen of it. We need to look at the language that was approved, and I think basically the language essentially said, and Dave and I have had this conversation, I think the language essentially said an order of repair as determined by the board in the millage. And I think the real question is, what is it that we're going to get done in that 3 years? The order of how that gets done, I think you have flexibility with in the terms of the millage question. Our real issue is that was a $7.5 million project that we now have $5 million to do. How do we do that? And, you know, some of the suggestions that are being made is we companion that with a different type of a utility plan who would cover part of it. We'd get the utility done as well as the road at the same time. I think one of the things, you know, the question that Pete was asking, what we're saying is where we have these utilities in place, the 6-inch cast iron that's maybe 40 years old, 10 years from now we're talking about replacing that. So that section of road would only get an overlay. We wouldn't do any kind of reconstruction. 10 years from now, we would do the reconstruction, but in that 10-year period, 7 to 10 years, the road would deteriorate, just like Brookton Road will over a 7 to 10-year period of time. That would give you the chance, basically, to be somewhat paid off to then go back and do the full reconstruction with the water on that road.
I think the key is that we talked about transparency, and, you know, as a board, we've tried to be very transparent in how we govern. I think the key here is transparency. When we sold the project to folks, we held 16 different meetings. We told people to come in and take a look at it. We put maps up to show, so when will my road get fixed? How much is this specifically going to cost me? We have to maintain that effort to be as transparent as possible, and that's why we said if we have to make changes, then we'll have to make changes. If we have to reduce the scope of work, we ask the folks if they still want us to move forward. If we needed to go back for more millage. I think that this has been a well-thought-out response from UP engineers and architects. I appreciate the thought that went into it. You know, basically it gives us an opportunity to stay transparent, to show folks that, you know, due to some revenue constraints, but we're trying to come up with some creative solutions to still give them what we told them we would give them, and within the amount of money that we said we could do it in. And if we can't do it, then I think as long as we're transparent with folks, we're going to be okay. And I think, I think this has been a really well thought out response to an unanticipated revenue stream issue. You know, I feel fairly confident in the recommendation so far to move forward with the resurfacing projects because it's something that was going to be taken care of anyway. And I think it does buy us some time. It means we're going to get some things done this first year that we were going to get done sometime within the first 3 years. It does mean that some of the heavier projects, like the street that I live on, unfortunately, will get pushed back on the timetable. But so be it. I think it's a smart and measured response, you know, to an unanticipated cut in revenue. And I guess I'm hoping that the board, I mean, if somebody wants to make a motion to approve a proposal tonight, that's fine, but I really think that it belongs on the next agenda.
Yeah. The improvement to the roads is, in my opinion, critical to the future of the township. I mean, we need decent roads in the area. We've got a lot of growth going on. There's a lot of growth still planned. There's a lot of growth still happening, but we need to have decent transportation network. The state's recognizing that with their millage question coming out in May. We need to move forward as much as we can.
So it doesn't really set you back too far if we have 2 weeks to decide to move forward with your proposal, yes?
Yeah, no, we anticipated that, and that's right. We don't want you to feel pressured to move forward. We actually, it's been a growing number in terms of the way we see it and to give you the most flexibility, and we believe the one that you have in front of you right now is the one that gives you that, and it's still, at least we're addressing those projects that you know work and they're going to be done. It's not, you know, right now that's obligated in terms of construction dollars less than $2 million, you know, so that's still, it's still leaving you over $3 million of road funds to do halves, do full, do however we need to do it in the future, and our proposal will make those recommendations as we go along. So, you know, we wouldn't, depending on how you do it, when we're at a point to go into the water stage or the next stage, that's when you would know, you know, we'd have engineering numbers in those steps as well. But right now, we think it's, you know, pertinent that you try and save as much as you can out of there. And right now, we think that we can do quite a bit for that number, and get your project up and running, and we have no problem waiting, 2 weeks. You start going out a month, I think you're getting.
Into
we
construction
need to
season.
start doing- There's one thing, we're not stopping and doing our research right now, and those numbers are just rolled into that. If you choose not to go that way, that's our, it's, again, I'm a township resident and I want to see this done right too, so.
Okay.
Dennis?
Ernie, go ahead.
You said, this is, what you got laid out for 15 is highly feasible in the time frame, construction time frame that you got laid out.
Oh, yeah, and again, to me, I think it's early enough in the year. We get that out before the snow is gone. It's a nice project for a paving contractor to look at. We start waiting till June or July. A lot of work going on. You know what's going on in the area. There's potentially a lot of, there's an upswing definitely in development, and there's a lot of work to be had by contractors here coming up. Things are turning around, which is really good for our communities, so right now, I think you need to get on the fast track to, let's get some dollars in place. Now, understand too, accepting bids is not a commitment to move forward on that yet.
Right.
You still reserve the right to reject that. If those numbers aren't where they need to be, then we gotta revisit, but we've only gone this far, and that's what we're trying to help you do.
Yeah, the other benefit that was mentioned earlier is that right now petroleum prices are down. If we can get a volume, if we can get bids out and get a contractor to get a volume purchase, we may save a significant amount of money in material.
And that's why, we'd start that tomorrow, but we understand, and it's 2 weeks, not critical.
Lynn, you had another question?
So knowing that we want the project to go forward, because not only because we're committed, but because we committed financially, but because we want it to, what are we looking to, what would the motion be next time? What do we need to consider that we're going to be asked?
What the motion would be next time would be to accept the proposal from UPEA as recommended by staff to move forward with the design and engineering and putting forward the bid specs.
So does that commit us just to this first phase of the project, like for 15?
For 15 is what we would be targeting.
So then we will address 16 and 17 when we talk about the water.
Once we have the engineering and identification of where the funding would be coming from.
Remember that when you look at their proposal and it's showing task 1, 2, 3, and they're talking about really going in and looking at the roads, this proposal covers engineering services for really digging down a little bit deeper. We got the PASER ratings from the road rehabilitation plan when they put it together. We talked about where they were at, where we were going to get to a PASER rating of 6 if all the roads are better. And these guys, part of this proposal is that they're going to be able to come up with concrete evidence to tell us, yeah, this road is reconstruction, this road is resurface, this is the one that's going to have, that's what you'd be moving forward with those engineering services.
Yeah, and the other piece of that is not all of a road may need to be fully reconstructed. So there may only be portions of that road that have water issues or something that would need reconstruction. The rest of the road may be a surface overlay. So what we had done originally is the entire road was identified as a reconstruct, and it may not be necessary to do the entire road, which significantly may reduce the cost.
We had 2 folks who had reserved time to speak, both Dave and Sherry, so if either of you guys would like to approach. He was closer, Sherry.
Just a couple comments about the whole project. We met a couple times with UP engineers and architects and discussed this. The reorder of the order repair, the reorganization of the order repair, this is something that was been talked about right from the start, that when we got the sewer and water projects information entered into that it would impact the order of repair. And I'll be the first to admit that we were surprised by the volume of maintenance and repair projects that are involved in water lines. When we looked at it initially, we were looking at the new sewer and water projects that the Public Works Department had to come up and working those into the reconstruction so that we could do a one-time deal. And it was probably, and I hate to say this, but it's probably a good thing that we had a little interruption in our revenue stream, because it got us to take a look at that other stuff. And it would have been sorry if we ended up pressing on for 2015 and reconstructing some roads that 5 to 7 to 10 years down the road, we're going to have to tear up and put a new water main in. So from that perspective, I mean, this got us to put the brakes on just long enough to take a look at that, and it'll probably end up saving us a considerable amount of money. From the road committee's perspective, we talked about it long and hard tonight, and we're comfortable recommending that the board move ahead with the 2015 proposal from UPEA and move forward with the bonding. Now, we obviously can't answer the legal question with respect to, does this meet the language in the bonding, but we leave that to the gentleman sitting on the end of the table down there. But from our perspective, to move forward with the 2015 proposal, it gets year one of a 3-year project done. It gives us time to take a look at the balance of the repair that needs to be done to the water projects and work that into the road repair. And as long as we can, with reasonable confidence, move forward, knowing that the $5 million bond would take care of the road project at some of without as much reconstruction, that's a good thing. So the road company, or the road committee, supported moving forward with the 2015 proposal.
Thanks, Dave. Sherry?
Sherry Johnson. I'm hoping my road does get done this year. It is on the 2015. I have a big hole. When we lose the snow, I go through a hole. I've been waiting to blow out a tire. My neighbor's hole is even bigger because we don't have a place for it to run off other than dirt, and it's leaving holes. And our road is cracking in the middle. So I hope our road does get done this year. I can't even get Marquette to pick me up door to door because they can't get up to Ontario when they stop. And now it fears me when you say Ontario is going to be redone because they left a lip on our side of Cherry Street. And so cars have to back down unless they don't stop at the stoplight sign, and that's an accident waiting to happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. So if the board's comfortable, we will move to the next agenda item, and you will revisit the 2015 Township Design Construction Service Proposal from UP Engineers and Architects as an agenda item on the next agenda. Seeing no objection. Thanks, gentlemen. We'll move to agenda item number 8B, consider Kitty Park equipment payment. You do have a transmittal in your board packet dated February 20th, 2015 from Manager Gerard. Randy?
Just very briefly, this won't take much time at all. This is the payment for the equipment that the board had previously approved for the Kitty Park. It is ready to be shipped. The board had not taken an action, however, to release the funds, and that's what I'm asking you to do this evening. It is budgeted. It is in my general fund budget, and we'd just like action of the board authorizing release so we can cut the check tomorrow and get it shipped.
Board recalls we held off on approving payment to move forward with the purchase of the playground equipment on account of we were hoping that we were going to see a grant come through that was going to pick up a considerable portion of this, and therefore we couldn't buy the equipment even though we had a great opportunity here to pick up a nice piece of equipment at half the retail price for an end of the year clearance. And that's why the company was kind enough to hold it for us pending the outcome of notification of the grant. We were notified that we didn't get the grant, but we did have the money set aside, which we had planned to purchase even beforehand as we pursued the grant. So here it is before you now, and in the amount of $58,971. What's the board's pleasure?
Ma'am? I'd like to make a motion that we approve and order it and pay for the new equipment for $58,971.
Support.
Motion and support. Board member comment. Pete?
I just think it starts off at 111,000, and we get it here at 58.9. Well, it's 55, plus you got,
Plus the shipping.
shipping and stuff like that, so I just think it's a good project. The equipment is it's overdue to get it, what's there now, and I think it's the right time to do it. Let's
Yeah.
finish
This-
off our park and.
This is a full replacement for all of the equipment at Kitty Park.
Lynn, additional comments?
Yep, I agree. Where are we going to store this in the meantime? I'm thinking it'll come early.
We have, now that the Public Works has moved into their new facilities fully, I've kept their storage facility that they had up on US 41, and we will be having it delivered there until spring installation.
Other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second to approve Manager Gerard to complete the purchase of the Kitty Park replacement equipment in the amount of $58,971. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on your agenda under new business 9A, consider the 906 Technologies website improvement proposal. This is something that we have been discussing. I spent a lot of time on other municipalities' websites and always comparing and contrasting ours versus theirs. And it's not that we have a terrible website by any means. We don't. I've certainly seen many more that were a lot less friendly than ours is. But we also have the ability to create a website that has capabilities and tools that will allow for increased communication with residents, prospective capital investment firms, and just general constituents alike. We did meet and sit down with the gentleman from 906 Technologies, who is, as you know, is our IT guys, and had the conversation about what that looks like. And you do have a proposal before you, Manager Gerard.
I don't have a whole lot to add to it. Basically, in all honesty, staff-wise, we're not able to keep up with the technological changes that are going on in social media and everything else. Planner and Zoning Administrator McCarthy does the best that he can, but he's busy with other things. So this is 906 Technologies is our IT manager. They're working with us every day. They're estimating about 86 hours of labor to do the design and the maintenance going forward on the website, and I think it's something that we need to do.
Jason?
Well, just a couple comments. As you mentioned, communication with residents is important, but it's also one of my goals to have the website be an information hub for all the things that are going on in the community. To be able to link up more actively with the Township Business Association, to be able to link up more actively with our recreation entities that are out there, the trail organizations. When it says upgrade, it's really a whole new website, whole new framework, much more user-friendly. A couple of the staff will get trained in on how to update it. But, right now, it's just a kind of a logistical nightmare to work on that website just because of the format that it's in now. So obviously, as technology moves on, websites are easier and easier to update, and you have the ability to not only update your website, but as soon as you push the button, it updates your Facebook page and things like that. So we want to be more proactive about creating awareness about the township and events and activities that are going on with development or what have you. This new design and capability would allow us to have bill pay online eventually. All the things that you would see on a more modern website. So we're excited at the opportunity and hope the board will support that.
Board member questions? Ernie?
You have the initial cost for implementing it. Is there an annual cost for them to do it, or?
No, I believe that's covered by our IT contract.
Other questions? What's the board's pleasure? Clerk Terry?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal for not to exceed $6,000.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the proposal as presented. Any other comments?
You let us know when you're.
When we're live?
When you're live, but just prior to live, so we can take a look at it before
Okay.
you go fully live.
One thing that was not mentioned is that each of the departments are going to contribute to this, which I think is pretty neat. So, assessing right now on our website doesn't really have any information on there, but they have information. The more information that you could put on there, it also helps deflect phone calls and questions that can be sought out by the, residents themselves or business owners. So everything will be upgraded. It'll match the building.
I think the more friendlier and more interactive we make it, people will go back and use it. If we do that, which is our goal, it does free up. It makes us more productive from an office staff standpoint, just because of the interruptions that we get from phone calls. That once you can teach them to be able to look it up, and the thing that it becomes is mobile phone friendly. You can grab your phone, go to Charter Township Marquette, and get some answers right from your phone. We're going to have increased capabilities for that. I think that it probably will make us more productive in the long run. Plus, said the more information that we can get out, which has been a goal of this board, is being more information friendly to all of our constituents. I think that's a good thing. If there's no other questions, we have a motion and a second to recommend acceptance of the proposal not to exceed $6,000 and confirm with 906 Technologies to move forward on the project. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. The next item on your agenda is 9B. Consider the 2015 fire officer appointments. Manager Gerard.
This has been quite a while coming. We've had a number of discussions regarding the fire officers' appointments for 2015. The department did hold their internal review and made recommendations to me, and I have gone through and verified the qualifications and the skills, and whether or not the individuals being recommended had achieved completion of the board established fire officer training program. We've already made 4 appointments previously at a previous meeting. I do have one additional recommendation here for hose lieutenant, which I'm going to ask you now to defer until the next meeting on the 17th. The reason I'm going to ask that is because one of the other departmental members that had completed the training program by December 31st of 2014 had not expressed an interest in being an officer, now has an interest, and I've not had the opportunity to interview him for the hose lieutenant position. So I would like to defer to do that interview and make that recommendation at your meeting on the 17th.
So you're moving everyone else forward except for the hose lieutenant's position?
Correct.
Okay. Questions for Manager Gerard?
I have one question. The one person, the fire marshal, is Ron DeMar. Is not he a full-time employee?
He is. He is fully employed as a budgeted full-time position as fire marshal. He's actually the third in command in the department, chief, assistant chief, and then fire marshal.
So by appointing him, we've already hired him as this, so the appointment
Correct.
is kind of a mute issue, isn't it?
Well, he's one of the officers in the department, and we always include that as an officer appointment, just as we do the administrative ones down at the bottom. They're not really command officers, but they're, quote, officers within the department from a support standpoint.
That would be my question. It's kind of a mute issue.
It is, actually.
I think we don't as a board because, the fire marshal, the chief, and then the assistant chief are different positions.
Correct.
I mean, really, they do get appointed by the board in the long run, but we don't have to annually appoint the fire marshal as the fire marshal. I mean, he goes without saying that he is our fire marshal and therefore automatically holds that position as an officer. So I don't believe that it requires him to be, what I'm assuming Randy put together the whole slate of officers, but we didn't necessarily have to approve.
Yeah, it just represents the entire slate of officers, the
He
whole
could have
rank
been
structure.
left off.
It just looks kind of odd when you say
Mhm.
appointed, but yet we hired him on a full-time.
Right.
It looks like you're appointing someone on a year-to-year basis from that.
Mhm.
So then, I think you could probably make the motion as appointing John DeMay ladder lieutenant, Rob Cochran as rescue lieutenant, leave the hose lieutenant position open, Jeff Sims as hose captain, and Andy Winslow as ladder captain is what you're looking for, is that correct?
The first 4 had already been appointed, so it's actually the hose lieutenant. The 2 new ones would be hose captain, ladder captain, and then the 2 administrative positions of secretary and treasurer for this meeting. The hose lieutenant, I would like to defer to the 17th.
Okay, so you really only want a motion approving Jeff Sims for hose captain, Andy Winslow for ladder captain, Jack Deno as secretary, and Mark O'Neill as treasurer.
Correct.
Thank you.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion a second. Any other questions for Manager Gerard? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second to approve. I'm not going through it again. The motion as reflected earlier. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And you will have, I'm going to put it on, you will have the additional hose lieutenant's position before us. Okay. The next item on your agenda is the consider proposed 2015 Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund Development Grant and Recreation Transport Grant application resolutions as a first reading. Planner McCarthy.
Well, thank you. Here we are again. It's March, and we're busy putting together our grant applications for the 2015 grant cycle. One of the things that's different about this year is that what we're proposing to do is to have you approve the first reading and the second reading of a resolution to support two grant applications, one being a MNRTF development grant for the next phase of the Schwimwood Park development, which we're on schedule with. And the second is a reapplication to the Recreation Passport Grant to construct a barrier-free pathway around the Lions Field recreation area. And along with that pathway, we're proposing to put in picnic tables and barbecue grills in advantageous locations. Last year, we weren't successful with the Passport Grant, in my opinion, primarily because we're not a metropolitan area. Our grant scored about as high as it could without having the extra points for metropolitan areas. We just don't have the population to get the other, the 5 points that we probably needed to be funded. This year, we had an idea of going around that and matching with 30% instead of 25, which would get us that extra 5 points. And if our project is in the eyes of the passport grant reviewers, that should get us to the point where we get funded to put a nice pathway around Lions Field, along with some amenities. You know, it could be a major transformation in 2016. The difference with this year is that we're asking you to consider supporting these resolutions with the idea that the staff and the Recreation Committee is going to go out and try to find match funds between now and whenever the potential award is. In October usually is when they come around and give out awards. And the reason being is because obviously we've had some, the tax tribunal issue affect recreation funding and money that we're putting aside for that. But what we have been successful with is going out and trying to acquire community grants that are out there, either from 2% funding from the KBIC Tribal Council or from the Cliffs Lundeen community grant, which we've made good on their $100,000 donation to the township with the near completion of the warming house. We believe that if we are able to move forward with the grants, that we would be able to come up with the matching funds required to match the grants as proposed in your packet. And I guess that's basically where we're at, and we're wondering if you have any questions. I know Mike has a presentation ready if you want to see that on, you know, the full cycle and where we've been and where we're going. But it's really not that much different than last year. We're basically working on our two parks. At Schwimwood Park, we'd be trying to expand the parking area, and we'd be making that ramp or the access going up to the wetland overlook ADA compliant, which right now it's not. But you know, we're in line with what the MNRTF is funding. Trails and trailheads are still a top priority in their eyes, and we have a beautiful neighborhood park in Lions Field, which the Passport Grant certainly satisfies. So
Any questions from the board for Planner McCarthy? Now, do you need the resolution to be voted on this evening, or do just the first read through and then we're... Okay.
It does not require a roll call vote.
Not until it comes before us the next time. And what we're discussing is moving forward, and we discussed it at the last meeting that, even though we are under attack with our revenue stream from the tax tribunal and some other issues, that really the key here is that if we were awarded these grants and we started to move forward, our matching funds wouldn't even be required until the 2016 construction season anyway. It wouldn't even be coming out of the 2015 budget. So we would know as we were about during the time that we were working on the budget for 2016 that these would come due. Would also know at that time whether the rec committee and Planner McCarthy were successful in locating matching grant funds from whatever sources are out there. We are talking about making a total financial commitment, was like $19,000 for one of the grants, and the other one was less, I believe,
19.4 for the MNRTF,
or more, 21.7.
I'm sorry, for the passport grant, and 9,700 for the Natural Resources Trust Fund grant.
Okay. So if, Ernie?
As a board member, I move that the board approve the resolutions as a first reading and that they be placed on the Tuesday, March 17th Township Board agenda for a second reading and possible adoption of the resolutions.
Second.
Any other board member comment or questions? Lynn?
I'd like to be the first to pledge $100 for each of those from the Cedar Motor Inn.
Let me write that down.
You bet.
Fantastic.
We had an internal conversation even earlier this week among staff that, maybe this tax revenue thing is kind of a blessing in disguise because it's going to make us more creative with our revenue generation. There are big grants out there, both for road funding, for recreation, infrastructure, and as you saw by the presentation by UPEA, sometimes it takes that creativity to generate new revenue that you didn't know was there. And so it's an exciting time, and these types of projects, we're going to have to be more creative, and we look forward to that challenge of being more diverse in our funding, and hopefully we'll be successful coming forward, and maybe we'll get a lot more than we anticipated previously, so, in the recreation realm.
We have a motion and a second to approve it as first read. If there's no other comments or questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Jason.
And I would only suggest that Mike be able to present his presentation at the next meeting for the second reading.
Oh, no.
Nice try.
Good job, Jason.
Absolutely. We'd love to see that happen. The next item on your agenda is 9D. Consider the sanitary sewer engineering services proposal for Trowbridge Park and South Vanden Boom. In your packet, you have a transmittal dated February 26 from Superintendent Page regarding this issue. It has to do with the sanitary sewer engineering service proposals from North Country Engineering. Superintendent Page.
Okay, I've included two sanitary sewer engineering services proposal in your packet tonight from North Country Engineering. The first proposal is to provide engineering services from design through post-construction for Phase 3 of the Trowbridge Park low-pressure force main project. The project area will include the area bounded by Cox Avenue, Ontario Avenue, Montgomery Street, and Center Street. The total proposed engineering costs are $22,815. Utility planning for this area has been ongoing since 2004, and construction has been ongoing since 2011. The second proposal is to provide engineering services from design through post-construction for Phase 1 of the South Vanden Boom low-pressure force main project. The total proposed engineering costs are $41,200. The project area includes South Vanden Boom from the Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Trail north to Brookton Road, and that'll be low-pressure force main. And then Brookton Road east to US 41, and that portion will be gravity. Utility planning for this area has been ongoing since 2006, and a preliminary engineering study for this project was performed in 2013 by North Country Engineering. And I recommend approval of the North Country Engineering proposals and request authorizations to execute the agreements.
Thank you, Kirk. Questions for Superintendent Page, Ernie?
On the first proposal, is that a continuation that we're doing up here on the?
In Northwest Trowbridge,
the
yes.
Northwest? That's just a continuation then?
Yeah, this is
Have we
phase
had
3.
enough people coming forward indicating they would want this at this point in time?
Yes, yes, we have. Yeah,
That's just the that's just the engineering costs for that.
Correct.
We don't have the cost for the actual project itself.
no, we will have some estimated costs.
Now, on the second proposal, looking at this here and then looking at what we're talking about, road repair and water main reconstruction and sanitary sewer construction and that, and fast forwarding to next year, or fast forwarding to when the engineering from, the engineering firm that was here, UPEA, was talking about developing engineering plans for these areas. So why are we doing something now when they're gonna be looking at having to develop all this for that construction as we
Right.
move forward in that?
Well, as you recall, Brian pointed out, and I have been talking for many years, that these are projects that we have already planned. And they're a top priority because there's an established need. So in other words, phase 3 in Trowbridge Park, phase 1 on South Vandenboom, I have people right now in need of these services. Plus, it could still be interfaced with whatever road project you choose to proceed with. And I should mention that I absolutely support your concept, first of all, of the overall road plan, and also for moving forward this year with your first phase of the road project. And these two projects are projects that I have been funding through the rates already. So this is something that could be totally done. And if you wanted to take advantage, actually, the phase 1 of South Vandenboom already has a water main. So that's basically half of Vandenboom, South Vandenboom. So if you wanted to, for example, choose to completely reconstruct this, the north half of South Vandenboom, you could totally do that
Yeah, Kirk, when would these projects be constructed?
this year.
Yep.
And phase 4 of Trowbridge and phase 2 of South Vandenboom, I'm proposing to complete in 2016.
So you're talking about this construction season, which would
Yes.
coincide with the road project.
Right.
Yeah, so it would be, Ernie, it would be coordinated with the road project. And that's why we're talking about the order of repair may change with these projects if the board wants to go forward with them.
Yeah, I'll just say the projects that I have that would impact the road project, the majority of them are in Trowbridge Park. So those are basically, the water projects in Trowbridge Park are water main replacement. Okay, so I've also been funding replacement of existing systems through the rates for a number of years. Now, that wouldn't, obviously, at this point, I don't have enough money to do that whole project. That project would require some kind of outside funding, financing, I'll put it that way.
But if we go
Which
ahead
could
with,
be in conjunction with the road project.
I'm just concerned with the proposal for South Vandenboom. And you're talking about 2016, which is true. But if they're going after the rural development or some other grant to do a lot of these water and sewer projects in that, they're gonna pay for part of the road and possibly most of the water and sewer at the same time.
Absolutely, but that's next year.
So if that's the case, along with the rural development, that also comes engineering costs with developing those at the same time.
Right, well, I'm still proposing to stick with North Country on these sewer projects, because as I said, they've been involved since day one. It's a #1 priority, and I don't need rural development. to fund these projects. So if you choose to go ahead and reconstruct these areas where I'm putting in the sewer, feel free.
Yeah, there would be a joint project.
Yes.
Basically, what Kirk's saying, these are already funded projects, basically. They're in his project budgets, and he's working with North Country Engineering on that, but that doesn't preclude UPEA from working with them to do a full reconstruct of the other lane of that road at the same time. And that's the order of repair.
The conversations that UP Engineering and Architects has had include Superintendent Page. They are aware of the projects as they were developing the map on the scope of projects ahead and how they're talking about we may want to shift some around based on water and sewer. They're well aware of the projects that Superintendent Page has proposed to complete in 2015 and moving forward as well, including these two projects, has entered into their proposal.
Doing the engineering for two of these, actually engineering for South Vanderbilt will just prepare it for future construction, is what we're saying.
Yeah, and we would not be duplicating the engineering. So,
No, there's no need to, and you know, UP engineers have not said that they would do the engineering for the sewer projects. So there's,
Oh, good question.
there's no need.
Other questions for Superintendent Page? Seeing none, what's the board's pleasure?
Ready? I'll make a motion that we approve it and move it on.
Support.
Motion and support. Any other comment or questions?
The motion will indicate the cost factors for each one of the proposals then?
It can or total.
We have, well, the motion will include the Phase 3 Trowbridge Park Low Pressure Force Main Project engineering cost of $22,815, and the second proposal is for Phase 1 of the South Vanderboom Low Pressure Force Main Project for $41,200. And if that's agreeable by all, then that's the motion before you. We have a motion and a second. If there's no other comment, all those in favor to move them forward?
Nay.
Say
Aye.
yea. Anyone against? That motion passes. Thank you very much.
I'll just make one quick comment.
Sure.
These services are including through the project, including project inspection and the as-bills after the project. So the project will still be bid, the construction part. And, you know, of course, you'll get the opportunity to approve that, hopefully in the near future.
Thanks, Kurt. The next item on your agenda is 9E. Consider the Marquette County Road Commission request for the EPA suit supporting resolution. The Marquette County Road Commission has determined that they would like to file or are moving forward with a suit that is privately funded against the EPA in regards to the rejection of the Road Commission's bid to construct County Road 595. As an offshoot of that, they have sent out a request to all of the surrounding municipalities and asked that we consider this resolution of support of the Marquette County Road Commission action to sue the EPA. We have, as a board, been consistently in support of safety on the US 41 corridor and limiting the amount of commercial truck traffic all the way back to 2010, from the old Woodland Road to support for County Road 595. We continue to explore options for any type of commercial bypass that will increase the safety of residents and visitors and passer-throughs alike on our busiest corridor in the UP, and that's with 35,000 cars a day. We've been a long-time supporter, and the Marquette County Road Commission is fully aware of that. But they have asked us to consider this because they're trying to collect as many municipalities to help support their bid. in this privately funded effort to sue the EPA, and they've asked that this board consider it, so I've put it onto the agenda. I gave it to you at the last agenda, but because you hadn't had time to look at it, we held off till now, and here it is. What's the board's pleasure? Pete?
I'll make a motion, we support the Marquette County Road Commission in their suit against the EPA.
Or
Motion and support. Pete, comment?
No comment, I just think it's the right thing to do.
Dana?
no comment.
Ernie?
From the, listening to what was said at the Marquette County Township Association and then reading this, it's entirely two different things. What they said at the county Marquette County Township Association was they're looking for approval to go or sue or whatever you say to the EPA. And that was as far as they were going. They didn't say anything about the next step, which was actually going through and building the road and that. The first step, and I brought up, there's two phases to it. One is going after the EPA to get them to approve something like this, and the second phase then is to then look at building the road. This here, you're saying we're building the road more than anything else in this resolution, rather than going after the EPA. And the other comment I have, and which I brought up before, was that once they get this done, where's the dollars coming from to maintain that road? And the answer I got was unsatisfactory to me, that they gave to me at the Township Association, and they have yet to answer that question to me, the County Road Commission, or no one else has. Because they can't maintain what they have right now. Every time you ask them, they're broke, they have no money for this or that, and yet the County Road Commission wants to go through with the construction of 595. The question is, and it's coming out more and more as you talk to people, who is it going to benefit in the long run? True, we have traffic problems, we're going to have more traffic problems on 41 and that. I think there's some hidden agendas out there that none of us know about. So I have great concern with the way this resolution is written in that. That's my comments.
Anyone else? Lynn?
I'm going to read what I wrote so that I don't miss anything. Better put these on too, so I don't miss anything. 2 weeks ago, I presented a suggestion to you regarding support of the pending lawsuit of the Environmental Protection Agency by the Marquette County Road Commission. I asked you to think about the broader concern rather than a pinpoint concern. We are elected officials who are charged with managing the health, safety, and welfare of our constituents, not one property owner and not one business. All of them, and that doesn't mean narrowing the scope to just Marquette Township. I pose to you that the direction that some local residents and officials have taken does not exhibit those traits. Supervisor Lemata and Manager Gerard started the discussion back in 2011 and 12 to do a traffic study for a possible bypass around the city and the Township of Marquette. When Manager Engineer Iwaniki brought resolutions of support to this board at that time. We did not support those resolutions, but instead staff drafted a letter saying that moving traffic farther west coincides with our master road plan, quote, with apparent minimal diverse impact to other jurisdictions, unquote. When we have suggested the traffic study to various county residents and officials, everyone said the same thing. There's no money. We can't afford it. So now, everyone wants to build County Road 595 again, previously known as the Woodland Road. And they believe that suing the EPA is the first step to that end. While suing a federal agency isn't unprecedented, it isn't a common occurrence or an easy one. Every year, 102 to 216 new lawsuits are posed against the EPA, averaging 155 a year. A lawsuit is going to take time, then dealing with building the road will take even longer. The organization spearheading the lawsuit is trying to collect $500,000 just for the lawsuit, which says nothing about paying for the road itself. How can we blindly support something when we don't even know who's supplying the funds? Or to what intent? They may not even be from or live in the UP or even Michigan. And remember, 595 is purported to primarily benefit one large business, other private companies, and specific landowners. This lawsuit and road campaign is being waged in the name of safety. Whose safety? When's the last time you saw a mine truck or a logging truck or a common carrier run someone over, or total a car, or run into a building? Are they ramming school buses and driving up on lawns? Who ran over the man this winter while crossing Highway 41? Who causes the accidents that the Township Fire Department siren blares? I said it before and I'll say it again. These truckers are not a problem. They are courteous, cautious, and more so than the tens of thousands of cars and pickups that drive the corridor daily. Would I like fewer of them past my front door? Yes. Would they rather take a 55-mile-an-hour route than a 45-mile-an-hour route? Absolutely. Would they rather not deal with stoplights and roundabouts? You bet. Using the issue of unsafe truck drivers is a scare tactic to a different end. And I'm not even going to address the suggestion of the road benefiting tourism. A traffic study and probable bypass would benefit the local community and beyond. I will absolutely not support this effort, and I will vote no on this resolution. What I will do is make a motion that we ask to meet with Mrs. Pello's board and discuss the possibility of joining forces with the entire county, municipalities, and businesses in pursuing a traffic study rather than the lawsuit. And to that end, I will pledge the first $500.
Other comment, Diana? Randy? So my comments are, we've always supported the construction of 595 as a board. In fact, it's been unanimous support on multiple occasions since 2010. The resolution here focuses strictly on whether or not we support the concept of Marquette County Road Commission moving forward with a lawsuit against the EPA, and I absolutely support it. The EPA, in dealing with County Road 595, there was no way that this road was going to be permitted to be built. Usually, when you talk about, wetlands mitigation, it's on a 2-to-1 ratio. The last proposal for County Road 595 was on a 26-to-1 ratio of wetlands mitigation, and it still wasn't good enough for the EPA. You hear claims that it goes through a pristine wilderness area. The entire UP is a pristine wilderness area. US 41 goes through a pristine wilderness area. M28 goes through a pristine wilderness area. So does US 2 and all the other roads. But yet our wildlife somehow still manages to thrive, and they're able to deal with that road. The bigger concern here is, will we ever be able to build another road in the UP with the EPA? I would say that if we allow this to continue, we might as well give up the idea of constructing any road, because the EPA has made it very clear in the way they dealt with County Road 595 that they were not going to approve it no matter what we did. Who was going to be in charge of the road after they were concerned? Well, the Marquette County Road Commission, well, they had some reservations. So they proposed perhaps the Michigan DNR should be in charge of that road to allay the EPA's concerns. They didn't trust them either. The bottom line here is, it didn't matter who we would have proposed who would be watching that road. The EPA was not going to allow it to be built. And I would tell you that, I'm sure you've heard the rumors that there's some powerful folks who have a little place called the Huron Mountain Club up the road from here who got involved and applied political pressure. I don't know that for a fact, but I believe that it certainly has a strong possibility to be true. Clearly, there were some pretty serious objections to this, and I support the resolution for the very simple reason that it absolutely is safer to move commercial truck traffic off the busiest corridor of US 41 through Marquette Township if we can. I think that you have seen some issues with, mining trucks, and just in the last month. Is it the mining trucks? No, I find those guys to be very courteous, like Trustee Durant said. I found that most truck drivers are very courteous. They do this for a living. They're here to be safe. But ask them if they'd rather do a 44-mile round trip or a 102-mile round trip and deliver an ore from the Eagle Mine. I'm pretty sure it's the 44-mile round trip every time. I think that the resolution, again, is just focused on whether or not we would support the concept of the road commission suing the EPA to move forward. The resolution doesn't talk about who's going to fund the road, who's going to take care of the road, or even if they'll ever be able to build the road. That would be an entirely new project. They'd have to seek funding. They would have to come up with those answers. This resolution only focuses on whether or not this board would support the Marquette County Road Commission in their lawsuit against the EPA, telling them that in the UP, we should be able to make decisions on where we put roads and not be stopped by insurmountable challenges from wetlands mitigation. And that's why I would support the resolution. Other comments? Pete?
I don't think we should worry about how are they gonna take care of it, or we might as well stop our planning. Because all our subdivisions, are we gonna worry every time we put a subdivision, or are we gonna worry about how we're gonna take care of that road or that subdivision? Are we gonna, what about Commerce Road out here? Do we worry about how that's gonna be taken care of? Venture Road, do we worry about that? No, I don't. I just think it's the right thing to do it. And Dennis is right, there's more than just, can we build roads in the UP? Because that's gonna be there's a lot of permits, and we said it many times, people like to get permits from, all the way from Lance, all the way to Big Bay. This would be a road that connects minerals from that whole area. What about the one in Menominee? They're supposed to be talking about one in, I believe in Wakefield mines or something. In that area, are they gonna stop that too? We are a mining industry, so I'm in favor of it.
Thanks, Pete. There's no other comments. We have a motion and a second before us. It is a resolution requiring a roll call vote. Clerk Rattari.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes?
Trustee Truska,
Yes.
Trustee Durant,
No,
Treasurer Johnson,
No.
Clerk Rattari is yes, and Supervisor Limata.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-2.
Thank you. The next item on your agenda is the manager's report. Manager Gerard.
You do not have a written report before you this evening, but I do have just a couple of items I wanted to bring up more for board concurrence than anything. First item is an email that I had sent out to board members regarding KBSE 2% funding and potential application. The board has supported requests for letters of support from other members of the community for funding from KBIC. The planner and zoning administrator, road commission, and North Star Academy jointly applied for a Safe Routes to School grant, which was successful. They received $565,000 for construction of Safe Routes to School, basically separated pathways from the roadways to move the children and visitors to the community to and from North Star Academy and this area as well. That award was for infrastructure construction only, was not for design and engineering. Typically, the Act 51 receiving entities, which is the Marquette County Road Commission, picks up the funding for design and engineering. They do not have funds available, not that they're broke, but they do not have designated funds available for that kind of work or the staff to do the work. So what we're asking is for board concurrence, just as we have with other letters of support, to support our submitting a request to KBIC for 2% funding in the amount of $50,000. Whether or not they approve it is up to them, but I wanted to bring it to you because the board has supported other requests. This would be a competing request. North Star Academy does have a request in for $4,000, but this request would also benefit North Star Academy. So that is my request. I don't know that it requires any kind of a board action, just an indication as to whether you would approve us submitting such a request to KBIC.
You need a motion, Randy, is what you're asking for from the board?
I don't think you need a motion. I think, like other letters of support, it's basically just an authorization to submit. I wanted to bring it to you because it is a competing request to other requests that you've also issued letters of support for.
So we can do it with board concurrence if that's all you're looking for.
That's all.
Comfortable with that. If not, then raise your objections now, and we'll let them know, but we're all comfortable, then.
Very good.
Okay.
We will do that. Second item is I also forwarded out to board members late this afternoon because it came in late. We did get written confirmation from the financial institution regarding the sale of the township facilities. It's a part of a three-phase package. The first phase was approved last Wednesday. Second phase is going to the next meeting, and then the third phase, which is our property, would be going to the following approval meeting. It is actively being worked on. It is supported. What they're awaiting right now is appraisals. We do have appraisals that we've submitted, and they're doing their own appraisals. We had talked at the last board meeting about the possibility of extending the purchase agreement for 90 days. That would certainly be an adequate amount of time to complete this process, so I'm bringing that to the board to see if you wish to do that.
That would require a board motion to
It
agree
would.
to extend it. Till what date, Randy?
Would be just 90 days from January 1st,
Well, the last one expired on
December 31st, January 31st, I'm sorry, February 1st,
February, March, end of April.
end of April.
Why don't we just make it May 1st, an extension through May 1st, if that's what you're looking for to consider? These got it, and if you saw it, it was basically the letters from the banker who has talked about the phases of it, and they're clearly in support of moving forward. As you know, we have had another person show interest. The purchase price is considerably different.
Proposed price.
Hmm?
Yeah, the proposed price is
Right.
considerably different.
So I guess that's up to the board's pleasure on whether you'd want to accept that 90-day extension of the
Not to exceed 90 days.
purchase contract.
I'd say not to
First,
exceed 90 days.
Based upon the, basically a letter of credit that we received from the bank. So what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion, we extend it to 90 days to May 1st.
Support.
Any comment?
No comment.
Clerk Terry?
The only comment I would make is, yeah, the two prices are considerably different. And I think it'd be, we waited this long, another month isn't gonna break us, I don't think. Because the price difference is so much, I just think it's a prudent course of action.
Any other comment?
I think this would probably be, as far as I'm concerned, the last extension for them.
I
at this
agree.
point in time.
I agree.
We've been very lenient with them trying to get it worked through. And it- True, as our clerk said, there's quite a few dollars differential in that, but, beneficial to us if it does come through in that.
Agree, Ernie? If there's another comment, we have a motion and a second to extend it from its last expiration, which would bring it up to May 1st. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes. Thank you.
And again, my last item is not anything that requires the board action. It's information for you. It regards the warming house. We are about to embark on the last two major phases of the warming house, and that is pouring the concrete flooring and then doing the final rough-in and electrical work. And I will be releasing, just basically to let you know, I'll be releasing tomorrow 50% of the cost for the concrete and the full cost for the electrical rough-in, total of $14,102. It still puts us under the $67,000 that the board authorized for the work, but I wanted to bring it to your attention that that's going to be happening. So we will be coming in hopefully slightly under that $67,000 with the volunteer labor that we've had done. I don't know if Dave wants to make any additional comments to that. That's my understanding as well.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thank
And
you,
Pete.
Dave and Mike. Pete. Questions for Manager Gerard? Lynn?
Going back to the KBIC.
Yes.
Is there any chance that this request is going to impede any of their funds, their request?
I don't know that. It's up to KBIC as to how they allocate the funding. They may or may not fund both. They may fund neither one. Depends on what the competing requests are. But as I say, this Planner McCarthy left, but basically we had a fair amount of conversation. This would dramatically benefit. I mean, it's basically almost totally to benefit North Star Academy. Our request. So we don't see that really as a negative competition. North Star Academy is asking for $4,000. We think there are other ways that $4,000 could be approved if it wasn't granted. Their purpose was obviously a good purpose. It's adding one additional day of counseling for their students. What we're talking about is creating safe routes for their students to get to school. So I think they're compatible in purpose, if not competitive.
Any other questions for Manager Gerard? Seeing none, we will close the manager's report and move to the second public comment. Anyone wishing to address this board may do so at this time.
Dave Wigan, 350 Brooklyn Road. I couldn't let the night pass without making a comment about that EPA lawsuit. And while I can certainly understand what the suit is about, and I would applaud the county's decision to take the EPA to challenge, I think somebody has to do it sooner or later. What troubles me about it is the $500-some thousand that lawsuit is going to cost. If that money was put towards a regional transportation study, which is sorely needed, it could actually bear out the finding that 595 isn't the best way to address the transportation needs. I just think it's a little short-sighted to think that the only solution is 595. I think there's bigger problems in the county, and I think we'll never know what they are until we get that transportation study done. So it's just a shame to see them spend that kind of money for the lawsuit when that transportation study is looming out there unfinished. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Your first and last name and address, please.
Wyatt Lutz, 1200 8th Street, Marquette. My concern was the old building. You extended it for 90 days. When was the extension? When is that going to be up? I'm with the party that's interested in buying it. At that point, I'm not sure if we're going to look at another building or look at another way. So when does her offer end? When does you guys going to cut a deadline? I mean, you guys never counter offered back either.
It'll be, the 90-day extension will bring it through the end of April, so May 1st it would be expired.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, move to additional comments from board members. Lynn, start with you.
No, thank you.
Anna?
Nothing.
Ernie?
No.
Wow, this is quick. Clerk, sorry.
I guess the only thing I'm going to comment as I was talking to our planner today about the ice rink, and we've had some difficulties keeping pucks and such in there. Well, I said, phase 2 of that is to put a roof on there someday. And with our challenge now of the big box stores and tax tribunal, I don't know if we're going to be able to fund that ourselves going down the road. I think it's going to be we're going to be looking for, funding requests like we did before. And I just want the residents to know that, this is going to be a big issue going forward for us. As Supervisor Limata has mentioned, the recreational opportunities that we are enjoying right now we might have to curb those someday. So, because we haven't taken the full hit yet, but it's coming. And, in the school board, I watched that meeting the other night, and they don't know where they're going to get the $500,000 that they're going to have to pay back. They're looking for reimbursement from the state, and I'm not seeing anyone from the state popping up to see where they're going to get that from. So it's going to affect a lot of folks here very soon, and it's unfortunate, but those are comments that I was thinking of the last few days. So
Pete?
It's good to see your comment in the newspaper. We've been battling this for, 2010, something like that, or whatever, but people still don't get it. And every time we have an article like that, it works out pretty good, so people understand a little bit more. I'd like to thank the Mining Journal for covering it, and she's doing a great job for us. In the past, we never had the coverage we have now, so I want to thank you for doing that. That's it.
Thank you. A couple comments. One, Dave, I couldn't agree more, and with Trustee Durant as well. The regional traffic study to me was key. Unfortunately, we can't compel private citizens to spend their money on that versus where they want to spend it. I was a huge proponent and first offered that as a solution going back 2 years ago to have Eagle Mine or Lundin Mining fund the regional traffic study. I think that it makes the most sense before we decide where everything's got to be. How do we route traffic for the next 30 to 40 years, I think really is key here. And I think we missed a big opportunity. Initially, Lundin Mining had agreed to fund that as a solution to moving forward based upon the Marquette County Road Commission's white paper that they had developed on dealing with trucking and commercial traffic bypass. Unfortunately, after their negotiations with the city of Marquette, they said they didn't have the ability to fund it any longer, and we lost that opportunity once they'd made the deal for the 3.5 miles of city roads that Lundin is required to drive upon to get out in the current route. It ate up the funding that they were willing to spend on that regional traffic study. I still think the regional traffic study is key, but I also know that as a group of Marquette County municipalities, there's no way we can afford to fund $500,000 on a regional traffic study. It's not going to happen unless we have another benefactor who steps up and is willing to fund that. I have had conversations with this group that is forming to get a coalition together to fund the lawsuit against EPA. I'm fairly confident in saying that they are not interested in funding a regional traffic study. I like Trustee Durant's suggestion that we ask that group to come in and see us as a board, and I will make that suggestion and move that forward to see if they're willing to come in and at least have the conversation with us. But it's tough because I still think that eventually one day we're all going to do our own minor traffic studies, and MDOT does it and the road commission does it and each municipality does it to some effect, but we've missed a golden opportunity when we really could have a whole group under Marquette County take a look at what our traffic needs going to look like 30 to 50 years down the road and base our road facilities plans on fact-based decisions that come from a well thought out look at engineering studies and population density studies. But unless you know of somebody else who has $500,000 and an interest in routing traffic, I'm afraid that ship has sailed. The other thing is, again, just a reminder that the ice rink is fully operational. We do have some concerns that we don't have enough open skating time available for folks. We do need to hear from you if that is indeed the case. One proposed solution was to maybe have it from 3 to 7 as only open skating, and then from 7 to 10 as open hockey. It seems to me that what I've seen usage of the rink so far is that it's more hockey than open skating. I think we've got to find the right balance. Maybe it's a 2-hour block from 3 to 5 or from 4 to 6 of open skating and then 6 to 10. We're looking for suggestions from folks who are using the rink. So if you are a user of the new ice rink out at Lions Field, please contact any board member or the member of staff or here at the township and let us know how we can better serve you, and we will certainly develop rules and around the rink so that we can get the maximum number of people being able to participate as possible. Thank you. That will close board member comments, and I'll entertain one last motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have motion, a lot of support to adjourn. If there's no argument, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
We get a lot of